This is David Dastmalchian. Welcome to the Life in Film podcast.
This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guest today got his big break when Christopher Nolan cast him in The Dark Knight. But Prisoners was the role that led him to Ant-Man, Suicide Squad, Dune, and Late Night with the Devil. We chat about how he bounced back after his agent dropped him, why working with Denis Villeneuve has been a game changer, balancing family with work, and pushing himself out of his comfort zone with his graphic novel, Through. Our guest today is actor David Dastmalchian.
I'm a superhero! I'm a motherfucking super...
You've had such an incredible career so far, and I'd love to wind back and ask, where did that passion of performance come from? Were your parents an influence? Was there family, friends? How did that begin for you?
The Muppets. I mean, as a little baby boy, there was something about the Muppets that just touched my heart. I loved the interaction of the puppetry and the sets and the scenery and the comedy and the love and the music with humans. So watching the Muppet Show when I was a teeny baby, I mean, some of my earliest memories are sitting eating a bowl of cottage cheese, which it's so disgusting. When I was a baby, I would fill my cottage cheese with ketchup and salt, watch the Muppets. And in like preschool, my friend's mom took us to see the Muppet movie, which changed my life in the cinema. And around that same time, I also, maybe a few years after that. And by the way, I was immediately, the Muppets I was the most drawn to were the Monster Muppets. And I loved all the monsters in the Muppets. And I loved the way that they could be friends with the animals and the humans. And I loved episodes hosted by people like Vincent Price and Alice Cooper. So then a few years later, I started watching the Late Show creature features and the spooky stories brought to life by actors like Lon Chaney and Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. That lit some kind of magical fire under my butt that I wanted so badly to be a part of it. I took my first stab at being on stage in kindergarten singing The Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie to the Oak Park Elementary talent show. And a few bars into the song, I forgot the lyrics. I ran off stage devastated, and I didn't get back up for a long time. The next time I got back up was maybe 6 or 7 years later. And I played Captain Hook in the Oak Park Elementary production of Peter Pan. And that was crack. It was so fun. And Halloween, I would put on haunted houses. I loved dressing up like, Dracula, or being the host of like a magical haunted, we had a little old concrete basement, and then we got some carpeting put down there when I was a kid. So I would it was like in Kansas where I grew up, everyone had basements because you get tornadoes. You need a place to go. So every house, and then you convert it into in like a place you can hang out, watch TV, whatever. So I would put up walls with cardboard boxes and blankets and create tunnels and do decorations with spaghetti for guts and ketchup for blood and make haunted houses down there. Loved it.
Amazing. Wow. So from a really young age, you obviously very into that sort of dress up, building things, playing, imagination. It's obviously where, being able to write a graphic novel, you got to have imagination for that. I read somewhere, I don't know how true this is, you never know with the internet or IMDb, but before you became an actor, were you also, there was kind of a string of jobs that I wouldn't have ever imagined. You were a fisherman, is that correct? And then
It's a true story.
a circus performer, is that another one that?
I didn't perform with the actual circus. What I did do was, and I see how that is misconstrued. My best friend and I created a kind of clown performance piece that we did street performance. So we were traveling street performers.
Right. Wow. So you kind of, that leads into the acting a little bit, doesn't it? It's obviously, creative. And in terms of getting your, that first job, I mean, I remember you in the Batman movie, like, opposite Heath Ledger, and I remember the scene that you had with Two-Face really clearly. And in my mind, your part was this massive part. Your face was so memorable to me. But watching it back, I was like, oh, you made the most of that moment. Like you had such a great, it was a small scene, but a great scene. What was it like? You had a couple of jobs before that, but getting that role in that movie, just talk us through that feeling. And obviously being a huge comic book fan, was that a moment? That must have been a moment.
That was one of the moments.
Yeah.
That was certainly in my 50 years of being a human. That was one of the moments where whatever your belief system may be,
Mm,
for me, I believe in a higher power. I believe there is something so beyond our understanding that has all of this is so beyond the way my brain can comprehend, and there is something beautiful, even though life is so hard and there's so much suffering and there's so much misery, and it's just so difficult sometimes to just be a human, let alone be a human in a world where so many people are suffering and mistreated. And I had really struggled with my demons in addiction and nearly lost my life. And then I was, miraculously able to get a new life of sobriety, and was working and started doing theater, and um, got this part in this film. And having spent my life collecting comic books and loving no comic book character more than the Clown Prince of Crime. I mean, he was always my favorite. Since I was a little third and fourth grade, I had posters in my room of,
mm,
all the different iterations of the Joker. When Tim Burton's Batman came out, it was caught me at the perfect time. I was in like sixth, seventh grade, changed my life.
mm,
Um, so here I was in Chicago, getting to be in a feature film. I love Batman Begins so much, and then I was in the sequel to it, my first movie role, a good little role that I didn't even know what I was really doing, but I had so many years of thinking about what these characters may be like that I felt like I had the benefit of all this knowledge and experience and thought. And so being able to create something and and truly believe like maybe this is the only time I'll ever get to be in like a Hollywood film,
mm,
and I'm starved at this point to be creative and work. And I'm in this intersection of the city I love, in a dream art that I love, underneath a director who I think is just one of the greatest of all time, with these actors. Because yes, I was with Heath and he was so loving and kind to me and wonderful and so fun on set, but like Gary Oldman was there.
mm,
uh all the other cast that were in those parade scenes were up and down the line the best. And I'm walking down, down the street past an alley where I had like parked my car and slept when I was a homeless addict. And I'm 2 blocks away from the comic shop, Graham Crackers, where I would go spend my paycheck money, at that time when I was a telemarketer buying comics, on Wednesdays. It was a moment. It was a moment, and I felt like I was floating above the earth. And and thankfully, I had spent so many years studying, training, trying to learn how to be the kind of actor I wanted to be, that I hopefully was able to like rise to the occasion in a way that seemed to make the director happy.
mm. Well, it obviously did because you've worked with him again. You worked with him multiple times, so I have to say, like, I hadn't seen The Dark Knight for a while, and I rewatched it because I hadn't, and because it's a great movie anyway. But particularly to sort of, I like to do my homework for these things and rewatch things, even if I've already seen them. And it really struck me. You had a small amount of time on screen, but you just nailed it. Like some actors might be able to let that brush past them, that those little moments, but and we were talking about it. I was talking about it with your agents before you came on, like that moment, you've got the gun to your head, and it's the emotion in your eyes, and it's become like a GIF. It's like a it's an image that you see quite regularly online, sometimes making a joke of something else or whatever. Um, and that is credit to a performance that, you know, could have been whatever, but man, yeah, incredible. And the fact that you took that opportunity and you nailed it, you can see the emotion in your eyes. But just incredible. I don't want to gush too much, but
Oh gosh, you're making my
keep
day.
going, keep going. But in
Thanks, man.
ter
I've been yelled at by an 11 and an 8-year-old all morning, so it's nice to have someone make me feel praised. I really
no,
appreciate
genuinely, man, like I'm an actor myself, and appreciating performances like that. Not, I mean, there's been so many performances you've done. I mean, Late Night with the Devil, incredible film, and it's so amazing to see your rise from, you know, these smaller characters, these interesting little character roles, to, you know, building up and being a leading man, but not just a leading man, but still interesting characters, because sometimes those lead roles can be a bit duller, you know, not as interesting, but you've had so many wicked roles. One of the ones I want to talk about, it was my favorite film of that year. I think it was 2013, Prisoners. And man, that was a performance that I remember at the time thinking, who's this guy? And then I remember connecting the dots and being like, oh, he was in The Dark Knight and everything else. That film is incredible. That role is incredible. What was the process like getting that role? It's a few years after, you know, you've done The Dark Knight. Was that a normal audition process, or how did that
Yeah,
come about?
I had gotten to Los Angeles in 2010. Um, my, you know, my wife and I had an apartment. I was living very hand to mouth. Would book an occasional commercial, an occasional guest star, co-star, and something. I was having a really hard time getting representation. You know, was able to finally get with an agency because I connected my commercial profits to their business, and in exchange for asking them to get me out on film and TV. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you got a role in The Dark Knight, you must have just gotten plucked up and discovered. Fuck no, I got dropped by an agency after The Dark Knight because I wasn't booking anything. I also was just not wanting to do anything, but I was going on every audition I could go on just because I really just wanted to work, and I wasn't being picky. I just had a hard time. I have a very specific look and energy, and even though I had been in The Dark Knight, I couldn't really get legitimate representation to save my life. So I was always submitting myself for things, which ultimately is what led to me getting cast with David Lynch years later. But that whole process, I'm glad I did it, where I would just, sometimes you'd pay like $10 to these services so you could submit yourself for an audition just to see if they would consider auditioning you.
Oh,
It was through
wow.
like Actors Access and CAS and all these systems. So I'm at that point where, you know, I am utterly uh, broke, and we're getting ready to go into the holiday season. And I got an offer for a film, that straight offer from a guy who called me directly. I think he found me on Facebook and could give me like maybe 10, maybe even $20,000, maybe not that much, but it was something significant to come be in his feature film. And I was so excited. It was a last minute thing. I needed to go in like 2 days or something. And I read the script, connect with it at all. And it, to the point where I felt like I knew if I said yes and I took the money, I would be doing a disservice to this really wonderful guy who created this film that he cared about was going to be a wonderful movie. I couldn't understand it, and I couldn't get into it, and I couldn't figure it out. So I didn't feel like there was a path forward. So I turned that down weirdly, as impoverished as I was, and as much as I wanted to work. And then I regretted it almost instantly. And the following Monday, when I would have been in another city making that movie, I got this call for a last minute audition for a film called Prisoners from a director named Denis Villeneuve, whose work, and by the way, back then I thought his name was Dennis, and I had seen one of his films, which was incredible, Incendie,
Mm.
and Maelstrom too. I loved, and I read the sides, and I instantly knew who this character was. And you know, the reason I got that audition, the guy who brought me in, he was an assistant in the office of the casting directors at that time. He is now a huge Hollywood casting agent, but at that time he was an assistant. And I had, when I was submitting myself for things, paid 25 or whatever dollars to some acting studio to go and do a workshop with him. And he just remembered me. And he brought me in for this thing, and I auditioned the fuck out of it. I didn't hear anything for a month. And they called eventually and said, "You're going to be Bob Taylor." And I knew again that was another moment that was going to change my life. As soon as I met Denis, and I called him Dennis for probably the first week before someone finally corrected me. When I met him, I knew that my life was changing. He's one of those people who you enter his energetic sphere and you go, "Oh, I'm about to level up. This is a human being who's on a special plane of love and consciousness."
Incredible, man. Incredible.
And the first thing he asked me was, he's a huge fan of Nolan. He wanted to talk about The Dark Knight.
Yeah, right. I love that. I mean, yeah, he's incredible, and it obviously led to Dune, and he's doing the new Bond film, and I feel like you are bang on for a Bond villain. I feel like you could be like perfect. But you know, you never know.
Your lips to God's ears.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now.
Please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at lifeinfilmpod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. We are sponsored by movieposters.com. Are you a movie fan? I presume you are. Well, at movieposters.com, you can shop for all your favourite posters in one place. The #1 source for high-quality, authentic movie posters. From new releases to cult classics and 100% authentic originals. Thinking of having a browse? Well, if you see a poster that tickles your fancy, as a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off with promo code lifeinfilm10. That's promo code lifeinfilm10. So why not give it a go?
And back to the show.
You've got so many projects coming out. It's insane. I was going through the list and I was like, okay, we're going to have to pick and choose here because we can't talk about all of them. It's mad. Congratulations.
The ones that I can talk about are the ones that haven't either started production yet or so I can't talk about Street Fighter and I can't talk about I can talk about everything else. So there you go.
Yeah, we got a long list, but I want to ask the first thing, through your graphic novel, your book, how did that come about? I mean, you've had a wicked career as an actor, you know, branching off and doing these other things. Where did that come from, and how did you know that you could do this? You know, it's a big deal to write something like that.
So, I mean, Through is one of the most, like, when you say labor of love, you hear that term gets thrown around a lot, or like a passion project. It is one of my, like, cornerstone passion projects that has been in my imagination since probably 2005. So here we are on almost the 20-year anniversary. At its inception, I was living in Chicago and I had started to tiptoe my way back into theater, and a really dear friend of mine who's a genius theater director named Jimmy McDermott and I would meet up for lunches, and he was working downtown, I was working downtown. And I was always going to the Museum of Contemporary Art, and I fell in love with the work of this outsider artist named Henry Darger. And Henry was a janitor who No one knew he was an artist. He was a hermit who passed away with a tiny little apartment in Lincoln Park. And when they went to clean it out, they found this entire incredible body of work, these manuscripts, these stories he told that were like a bizarre hybrid between Frank Baum's like the Wizard of Oz with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, but all through the lens of this bizarre reality where children were being oppressed by adults. And it was just captivating to me that for someone like myself who loves telling story and loves writing and loves acting, but does so as part of a relationship that I have with people outside of myself, in particular the audience. I don't make films to exist in a vacuum. I don't write except for my journaling for it to not be read by others. So the thought that you could dedicate an entire life with no interest in sharing these books and this artwork that you'd created to somebody outside, just something about that got under my mental, imaginative skin. And I started carving out this idea. And Jimmy and I bounced it around for several years because I thought, what magic could that kind of reality conjure? And I came up with this idea of like a woman who maybe worked for like a toy manufacturing company. I really couldn't figure out who she was, but I knew that she struggled with like being in control of everything, and that she, similar to myself, struggled with maybe like deeply repressed suicidal ideations. And so in an unconscious attempt to take her own life, she ends up getting rescued down by Lake Michigan by an old man who to me was very inspired by Henry Darger. I call him Henry Wojciech in my book now. And he saves her life, but she has no understanding of who he is, why he was there at that moment. And the more she starts to unravel the mystery, she realizes this man's been following her entire life since she was a little girl and stalking her in a sense. And so she breaks into his tiny little apartment and finds this incredible little minuscule artistry that no one is aware of. And in discovering it, gets sucked into another realm and discovers this kingdom that was entirely built for her. And I feel that way, and I have felt that way for a long time, that we all have these imaginary, spiritual, emotional, psychological universes within us. And the state of those places is so directly tied to the way we are interacting with the outside world and the way we are interacting with ourselves. And so over the last 20 years, as I've gone through some really groundbreaking for myself changes in the way that I address my own psychology and mental health, I started to understand what it might be like if I discovered an interior realm that I could go in and out of, kind of like a Pan's Labyrinth. So the book is now coming out. It's a bit mind-shattering for me because I'm still terrified that I didn't get it right. So I keep trying to go in and ask my editor if I can make changes and dip-dops, and he's like, you need to stop, lose my number. The book is coming out. It is happening. And I'm nervous and I'm excited and it's terrifying. It's not horror. It's not superhero. It's not a lot of the stuff that I have had success with in the graphic novel or comic space has been a certain thing. And this is its own thing. I've never done anything like it. So
Man,
very excited.
Sounds incredible. I cannot wait to have a look at this. It sounds incredible. And
Thank you.
how long has this taken? You say obviously the kind of the idea, the conception came from many, many years ago, but
Yeah.
the process of actually putting pen to paper, actually creating it from the start, well, how long did that?
Yeah, so I finally reached the place where I started to understand why I needed to tell the story. I haven't wrote anything worth a pinch of salt in my life that hasn't come from a deep need to wrestle with something. So I had this great framing device with, Alex breaks into the apartment, finds the miniatures, sees through the eye of the needle, goes to this other realm. It's built for her. Why? What's the mystery? All of that was very cool, but cool isn't enough to capture people's hearts and minds and imaginations. You need something else. So I was on this path and this journey of really wrestling with the darker nature of my own internal universe. And things started to connect, metaphors, allegories, mysteries. And so I really came up with what I felt like was I finally found, after many years, found the engine of what would make this machine work. So I wanted to see it come to life as a not single issue comic series, not as, you know, a novel. I really imagined it as a big, impressive book of art that feels almost like inspired by the work that Taschen does or something, where you go like, oh, this is cool, and you start to open and you fall into the mystery of the book. So I pitched the idea to a couple of publishers, and you know, it's been hard enough for me to explain it to you in this interview, considering I've lived with it for 20 years. Imagine how jarbled and mushmoush my mouth was when I was trying to explain it to some executive at some publishing house. And thank God I sat. My friend Simona Wolf, Simi Wolf, who's I met through Marvel. She was a film producer at Marvel. She always believed in the idea, and we had coffee with this editor at Z2 Publishing, who I knew they were taking bigger risks on more artistic books. And I said, here's this idea. And I started to talk about it. And Rance Hosley, the editor over there, guest editor in chief, he got it. He got it. He got it. He started saying stuff back to me that just made sense. And then I met with the rest of the company, and Josh, who owns the place, and everybody else there loved the idea. So here's what's crazy, man. So I got the green light to start actually scripting the book, and it was going to be like maybe 100-page graphic novel. Forget it. It immediately started going longer and longer and longer, and I kept having to beg for like more pages. But at the time that I went to write it, I was in Toronto, thousands of miles away from my family, and descending into 23 years of being clean and sober and on a journey of like mental wellness. Like the spring of 2024, hands down, the most difficult, life-threatening, terrifying mental health crisis I think I've ever had in my life. And my need to try and take control of the situation and how horribly I was feeling. I stopped sleeping. I was riddled with so much anxiety and tension. I basically pushed everybody I love away from me because I was trying so desperately to like grab onto them because I was sinking. And I'm writing this fucking book, and it's like coming to life as I'm going through these different chambers of my own labyrinth in my brain and working with like professionals helping me. And it was the most wild, incredible thing that like while I was actually writing the words of the book and passing them over to my editor, I was living in real time my own through experience. And thank God to say I am on the other side of that. And I'm feeling so much more equipped with so many more new tools and learned so much about myself, as I hope Alex will on her journey. But they say the only way out is through. And I feel like I've truly come through something in my life. And now I'm ready to share this book with the world.
Well, it must be so intense because it's like a form of, well, it is a form of therapy, writing these things down and obviously opening doors that, as you say, you've kind of got to get through that, out the other side. That must be tough when you're halfway through writing something and you're thinking, I don't know if I can keep going deeper into this. That must be tricky.
It is. And it's a great testament to the power of story, to the power of therapy, to the power of mental wellness. You know, I'm part of like a wonderful support group, but also great editors and publishers who are willing to take a chance on things that are outside of the commercial normative, that are not in line with the data that's provided by, a really, kind of all-knowing crystal ball of capitalist publishing, check marks. This is a one-time book that is filled with very special beautiful art, but that is outside of the realm of the way people are used to engaging with these kind of stories. My hope and my dream is that people who do take a chance on it and get absorbed and love it will, you know, it's the kind of thing you could like leave on your coffee table, hopefully by the design, and it looks pretty. And then maybe someone's sitting over at your house having a coffee one day and goes, "Oh, what's this?" And then they can get lost in it. And then they can get lost in it. And we can all get lost in our own internal universes, you know?
Man, that's exciting. That's amazing. And
It's exciting, but it's so scary. I'm so scared, man. But that's a good feeling. I like being scared. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I know that I'm doing something of value for myself when I'm not totally comfortable and confident about it. And everything I'm doing artistically, especially in the last few years, is that all of the comics I'm writing, the films that I'm making, taking on roles like Late Night with the Devil, Murderbot. There's so many things that just were so outside of my comfort level, and the universe keeps, you know, rewarding me. It's not that every time it's a success. Don't get me wrong. Like sometimes I take these wild, crazy swings at things that scare me, and I completely fall flat on my face. But I feel like the expansion is still continuing, even when we fall and we fail. Like if we're doing and facing the things that we're afraid of, and it doesn't have to be creatively, it could be romantically, personally. I've done so much of that in recent years, just figuring out what relationship dynamics are healthiest for me. Being a dad, take so many scary risks to break outside of the norm of the way I was taught to do things. And sometimes I utterly crash the car. I keep expanding, which feels like that means you're going in the right direction.
I'm about to become a dad, so you saying that to me does fill me with a little bit of fear. I like to have control and, like, you know, be structured in my life, and I think all that might go out the window. But
there's a flow to it. There's a give and take. Children thrive, at least most children, I should say. There are no truisms. There's anybody who tries to tell you that this is how things are done, run far away from them. People that are willing to be humble and say, you know what worked for me? Take that tidbit, take this tidbit, but you're going to build your own magic toolbox if you're doing it with your partner on how to do this. And I'll say, just like writing films or acting in movies or TV shows or doing theater or writing a book or a comic book or a graphic novel, it's like there is a certain structure that creates a safety, especially for children, where they have consistency. And through consistency, we can learn safety, and that we're safe to, it's the control that I was really struggling with was like conflict, differences of opinion, them testing boundaries, them pushing boundaries. That's all a natural, healthy way in which the human animal can, if in the right circumstances, become a independent, self-supporting, self-safety producing, kind, you know, empathic person. What I was doing that I made a lot of mistakes with was this notion of like, they need to learn, I need to keep this a certain way, because if it extends outside of that, they're not learning the lesson right now. I was looking at everything as like, this is a monumental moment. They're not eating their lunch right now. They need to eat it, because otherwise I've lost the battle. And it doesn't work like that. It's about creating a safe place where they can feel comfortable, like saying, being upset or angry, and learning that the way they express that is what matters. So yelling at me, calling me names, screaming at me, it happens because my kids are kids, but I can redirect that, and I can let them know it's not acceptable and inappropriate in a way that isn't controlling the way that I used to. And I used to do it not just with the kids, man, with creative collaborators, partners. God knows, loving me is one of the hardest things that anybody will ever attempt to do. So I just feel so grateful that even though I'm so far from perfection, I've learned so much, and I feel like hopefully people get some of that out of this book.
We've got to wrap up now, man. It's been absolutely wicked talking to you. I'm a big fan.
I want to wish you the best with the new life that you're going to be shepherding into this world. That's a beautiful thing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Life in Film is an awesome outlet, so I'm glad that you guys wanted to chat, and I hope you will. I hope we'll do it again. There's hopefully
100%. 100%. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support us, get early access and exclusive content, all ad-free, click and join the Life in Film YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to our guest David. Thank you to Malcolm, Caitlin, and the team at Persona PR. As always, thank you to our sponsors, movieposters.com and Betterhelp.